All right, so in our Neteru series, in this session, we're going to be talking about Asar, Aset, and Heru. Using the Greek names, it's Osiris, Isis, and Horus. But I will not be using their Greek names. So, starting out with Asar and Aset. This is the father-mother paradigm, the divine mother and divine father. Assar being the father, Aset being the mother. Now, narratively, Assar, in a sense, represents the fullness of God. Whether he's up high or whether he's down below, he represents the fullness of God. Part of the narrative is that he's killed by his brother, sliced up and scattered all over the world. This represents the puzzle piece aspect of God, in that there's something to be understood about God all over the world. That different cultures, different creeds, different people, it can be said that every person carries a little bit of God in them. And that's kind of what Asar represents. It's the God that we all are. In our holiest state, in our healthiest state, paired with Aset, right? Well, actually, before I go to Aset, I'll also say that Assar rules the duat. Now, I have a slightly different understanding on what the duat is than you may hear other places. And it's that it's typically seen as the underworld. And that, for most people, that means the afterlife. But I do not see the duat as the afterlife at all. Or land of the dead or anything like that. I see the duat as earth in comparison, because the cosmology and the stories of ancient Kemet begin in heaven. Ra's journey begins in heaven, and I'll get to Ra when I get to Ra in a different session, but Assar is the ruler of the duat. He has I guess you could say, a descent into the duat where he now rules. So it's kind of like seeing him as the ruler of the world, the fullness of God, fully manifested and fully governing the world. So that's one way to look at it. Then we have Aset, or Isis, who represents the divine feminine, of course. She's seen as somewhat of a magician in a sense, representing the supernatural. She's a demonstrator. She knows how to do things. She knows how to put things to work. She's a nurturer in her own right. And one of the cool things, her name actually means throne. This is the divine mother that gives birth to royalty. That the sons that are produced from her are all royalty. This kind of alludes to the born again experience, or the born from above experience, in that we all come to the realization that we have a heavenly origin. Not just a heavenly origin, but a heavenly DNA. And it's actually the journey of Aset which finds all the pieces of Assar and puts him back together, so that Heru can be born. Heru is the son of Assar and Aset. A very simple principle of offspring is that the son, or the offspring, bears the fullness of both parents within himself. So Heru is what you get if you mix Assar and Aset together. So you have this principle of fullness being scattered, and then this principle of royalty bringing all things back together, living within one entity known as Heru. So, something else that I see, because the Neteru also represent scientific principles, I see Assar in this concept as the principle of dissension or negative, and Aset as ascension or the positive. And when you take a positive and a negative together, you get a charge. And I see that charge as their offspring, their son. That would be Heru, which is the power, that spark of light that you get by mixing the two. Now, Assar is often considered the first Lotus Master, in that he is seen as the first enlightened one, in a sense, heavily connected with the Lotus. I'll go back to that. So we get back to Heru. Heru, the falcon or falcon-headed Neteru, whose name means he who sits above. Heru is a principle of the Most High. But when you look at the way that he's depicted, you see a falcon head and a human body. That represents, well, let's talk about the falcon. So the falcon has the ability, one, its eyes are special in that it's able to look up into the sun without hurting its eyes. That's one thing. It's able to fly super high and look down low. It has keen eyesight. It's able to dive down below into the water, grab a fish, and come out dry. That's another principle. It's able to fly up and lock its wings. Heru is a principle. If I were to use Christian texts, it's the setting your mind on things above, ruling from above, though functioning down below. It's being so heavenly minded that you're finally any earthly good. It's what it looks like to function in heaven or live in heaven while functioning down below. The body is on the earth, but the head is in the clouds. So going back to what he got from his parents, well, the fact that he has the ascension and descension principle built into him because he carries the fullness of both parents, he represents the son's ability to traverse back and forth between the heavens and the earth. We also see, just talking about him being able to stay up in an enlightened state and also be grounded down below, well, Assar, being related to the lotus, the lotus flower represents divine ecstasy. So it's a spiritual high in a sense, which means that he stays in a state of divine consciousness. What others may have had to exercise for, the son has within himself, where he is ascension technology. He is awakened technology, activated technology in physical form. And those are a few of the different principles that I've come to understand. One of the things that can also be said about Heru, and one of the things that he got from his mother Aset, is the ability to heal. One of the verses, I believe it's in the coffin text, talks about how his spit heals. Now, if you've read the Bible, that sounds a bit familiar. That's because Yeshua is a Heru, and actually walked in that principle. But I'll leave that there. More to come later. So that is a brief overview of my current understanding of Assar, Aset, and Heru. Until next time.